I never expected to find the letter that would change everything while cleaning out my childhood bedroom. My name is Riley, and until that moment I thought I knew exactly who I was in my family, the responsible one, the steady one, the one who stayed behind while my younger sister Emily chased her dreams. Riley, honey, don't forget to check the back of the closet, my mother's voice carried up the stairs, that familiar note of control wrapped in sugary sweetness. There might be some old school things we can donate. I rolled my eyes, shoving another box toward the door. 28. I was well past needing reminders about thorough cleaning. But that was my mother, always directing, always managing. Even now, as I prepared to help them downsize to a smaller house, she couldn't help herself. The closet was mostly empty when my fingers brushed against something wedged behind the baseboards, an envelope, yellowed with age. I recognized the handwriting immediately, my grandmother Eleanor's elegant script spelling out my name. My hands trembled as I opened it, careful not to tear the delicate paper. The date at the top made my heart skip. It was written just weeks before she passed away 5 years ago. Dearest Riley, it began. If you're reading this, then your parents have failed to honor my wishes. The college fund I set up for you, $50,000 in total, was meant to be yours alone. I've watched how they favor Emily, how they dim your light. This money was meant to help you shine. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. What college fund? For years, my parents had told me we couldn't afford college, that I needed to work to help support Emily's education. I believed them. Accepted it as my role in the family. Riley, my mother's voice again, closer this time. What's taking so long up there? I quickly folded the letter, tucking it into my pocket. My heart pounded as footsteps approached the stairs. 5 years. They'd kept this from me for 5 years, watching me work double shifts at the diner while Emily attended her dream school. Coming, Mom. I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. Just found some interesting old papers. As I heard her footsteps retreat, I pressed my hand against the letter in my pocket. My grandmother had tried to give me a future, and my parents had stolen it. The quiet, dutiful daughter they'd always counted on was about to become someone else entirely. Someone who wanted answers, and maybe even revenge. I took one last look around my childhood bedroom, knowing nothing would ever be the same. Truth had been hiding here all along, waiting for me to find it. Now that I had, there was no going back. I waited until dinner to bring up the letter. My hands were sweating as I placed it on the kitchen table, watching my mother meticulously arrange the placemats like she did every evening. My father sat in his usual spot, already absorbed in his phone, while Emily texted away, probably to one of her college friends. I found something interesting while cleaning today, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. A letter from Grandma Eleanor. My mother's hands froze mid-motion. The silence that followed was deafening. Oh. She didn't turn around, but I caught the slight stiffening of her shoulders. Just some old correspondence, I'm sure. Actually, it mentions a college fund. I pushed the letter forward. $50,000, for me. Emily's head snapped up, her perfectly manicured fingers pausing over her phone screen. My father finally looked up, his expression a mixture of panic and guilt. Riley, sweetheart, my mother said, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I knew too well, your grandmother was confused near the end. She made a lot of promises she couldn't keep. The letter's dated 2 weeks before she died, I countered, and it specifically mentions that the money was already set aside. Really, Riley? Emily rolled her eyes. Are we supposed to believe Grandma just happened to leave you a secret fortune? Maybe she left me a yacht we don't know about too. My father cleared his throat. Your mother and I did what was best for the family. College costs are astronomical these days, and with Emily's potential. My potential? I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. What about my potential? I've been working at that diner for 5 years, giving you half my paycheck, while Emily gets to pursue her dreams. Don't be dramatic, my mother snapped, finally turning to face me. We've all made sacrifices. Your sister needed. Needed what? My voice cracked. Everything? While I got nothing? Emily's smirk faltered slightly. It's not my fault you didn't try harder in school. Someone had to make something of themselves. The casual cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to defend me, to acknowledge the unfairness. Instead, my mother began serving dinner as if nothing had happened. We should focus on the present, my father said weakly. What's done is done. I picked up the letter, my grandmother's words burning in my mind. They'd stolen my future, and now they wanted to pretend it never happened. As I watched them settle into their usual roles, Emily the golden child, my parents the devoted audience to her success story, something inside me hardened. You're right, Dad, I said quietly. What's done is done. But what happens next, that's up to me. The drive to Aunt Grace's house felt like an escape. After last night's confrontation, I couldn't stand another minute of my mother's cold silence or Emily's smug looks. Grace's cottage, with its overgrown garden and wind chimes, had always been my safe haven. I found her in the kitchen, baking cookies like she always did when she was worried. One look at my face and she knew. You found the letter, she said, wiping flour from her hands. It wasn't a question. You knew? My voice cracked. All this time? Grace's shoulders slumped as she pulled out a chair. Sit down, sweetheart. There's more you need to know. She disappeared into her study and returned with a manila envelope, weathered and thick with documents. Your grandmother didn't just leave you a college fund. She left detailed records of everything, bank statements, letters to the trustees, even recordings of conversations with your parents. My hand shook as I pulled out the papers. The statements showed regular deposits over years, building up to well over $50,000. Then, 3 months after Grandma Eleanor died, everything was transferred to a new account. They used it for Emily's college tuition, Grace confirmed, her voice tight with anger. Eleanor knew they might try something like this. That's why she made me promise to keep copies of everything. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to, believe me. But Eleanor made me promise to wait until you found the letter yourself. She said you needed to be ready to stand on your own feet first. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw my mother's SUV in the driveway. Grace, my mother's voice carried through the open window, your neighbor said Riley's car was here. We need to talk. Grace squeezed my hand. You don't have to face them if you're not ready. But I was already gathering the documents, my heart pounding. Actually, I think it's perfect timing. I heard them before I saw them, my mother's heels on the porch steps, my father's nervous cough, Emily's dramatic sigh. Riley, my mother started as they entered, then stopped short when she saw the papers spread across the table. Color drained from her face. Looking for these? I held up a bank statement. Funny how Emily's tuition payments matched the exact amounts withdrawn from my college fund. You had no right to go digging through, Emily began, but Grace cut her off. She has every right. It's her money you stole. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. We were going to pay it back. When I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in years. After you finished paying for Emily's master's degree with my paychecks? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. In that moment, watching their carefully constructed lies crumble, I realized Grandma Eleanor had given me something far more valuable than money. She'd given me the truth, and with it, power to finally break free. The diner's fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and unreal as I mechanically refilled coffee cups during my evening shift. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at Aunt Grace's, And my parents had shifted tactics from denial to constant guilt-tripping texts. "You look like you're about to drop," Sarah, my coworker, said as I fumbled another order. "Everything okay?" Before I could answer, the bell above the door chimed. Emily walked in, wearing the designer coat our parents had bought her for Christmas. My stomach clenched. "We need to talk," she said, sliding onto a bar stool. "Mom and Dad are falling apart because of you." I kept wiping the counter, not looking up. "I'm working." "They're behind on the mortgage," Emily continued, her voice low. "Dad might lose his job." "Is that what you wanted?" "What are you talking about?" "They took out a second mortgage to pay for my last semester," she leaned forward. "They were counting on your rent money to make the payments." The coffee pot slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. Hot liquid splashed my ankles, but I barely felt it. All those extra shifts, all that overtime, they'd been using my money to pay for Emily's education. Twice over. Sarah appeared with a mop. "Take 5, Riley. I've got this." In the break room, I slumped against the wall, my hands shaking as I pulled up my banking app. 5 years of deposits to my parents' account. Money that could have been my own education, my own future. Emily followed me in. "Look, I know you're upset about Grandma's money, but..." "Stop." My voice was barely a whisper. "Just stop." "They did it for me," she said, and for the first time I heard uncertainty in her voice. "Because I had potential. And I didn't." I turned to face her. Or did they just decide that before giving me a chance? She flinched. "That's not fair." Neither was stealing my future. I untied my apron. "Tell Sarah I'm taking the rest of my shift off." "Riley, wait." But I was already walking out, my mind racing. I had some savings hidden in a separate account. Not much, but maybe enough for a deposit on a small apartment. Aunt Grace would help me figure out the rest. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Family dinner tonight. We need to discuss your attitude." I typed back 3 words that changed everything. "I'm moving out." Then I blocked their numbers, started my car, and drove toward Aunt Grace's house. The weight of years of manipulation and lies finally lifted from my shoulders, replaced by something that felt dangerously like hope. Sometimes, I realized, revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. The apartment listing on my phone screen blurred as I sat in Aunt Grace's guest room, surrounded by hastily packed boxes. A studio downtown, small but affordable on my diner's salary. My finger hovered over the "Contact Landlord" button when heavy knocking echoed through the house. "Riley," my mother's voice, sharp with desperation. "We know you're in there." Grace appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. "You don't have to talk to them." But I was already moving. 5 days of ignored calls and messages had led to this. Time to end it. They burst in as soon as Grace opened the door, my mother leading the charge, my father hanging back, and Emily lingering in the doorway like she was watching a play she hadn't quite decided to join. "This ends now," my mother declared, brandishing a stack of papers. "We've calculated everything we've spent on you since you turned 18, room, board, utilities, food. You're billing me." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "For being your daughter?" "For being ungrateful," she snapped. "You owe us nearly $40,000. The room tilted slightly. "You stole $50,000 from me, and now you're saying I owe you?" "We invested in the child who showed promise." Her composure cracked. "Emily needed you. I needed you too." The words exploded out of me. I needed parents who believed in me, who gave me a chance instead of deciding I wasn't worth investing in. "That's not fair," my father finally spoke. "We did our best." "Your best?" I grabbed Grandma Eleanor's letter from my bag. Was it your best when you lied about this? When you used my rent money to pay for Emily's education? I turned to her. Did you ever once think about what it cost me to fund your dreams, or were you too busy looking down on me from your pedestal? Silence fell. In that moment, I saw them clearly: my mother's desperate need for control, my father's weak enablement, Emily's carefully constructed superiority. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady. I've signed a lease. I start night classes next semester. You can't, my mother began. I can. And I am. I picked up my phone, pressed contact landlord, while they watched. Grandma Eleanor believed in me. That's enough. If you walk away, my mother's voice turned cold, don't expect to come back. I looked at my family, really looked at them, and felt something final settle in my chest. That's the point, Mom. I won't need to. The sound of my footsteps on Grace's hardwood floors echoed like a drumbeat as I walked away, leaving behind everything I thought I needed, walking toward everything I could become. Moving day arrived with a bitter winter rain. I stood in my empty studio apartment surrounded by the few boxes I'd managed to pack before my parents froze my old bank account. They'd even reported my car as stolen, forcing me to leave it behind. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. Mom's in the hospital. Stress-induced panic attack. Hope you're happy with yourself. I deleted it without responding, but my hand shook as I unpacked a box of kitchen supplies. The diner had cut back everyone's hours and my first tuition payment for night classes was due in 2 weeks. The walls of my tiny apartment seemed to close in. A knock at the door made me jump. I opened it to find my father looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother's sick, he said without preamble. Emily told me. We're losing the house. His voice cracked. The bank called in the second mortgage. Emily had to drop out of her master's program. I gripped the doorframe. That's not my fault. No. He pulled out his phone, showed me photos of my mother in a hospital bed. Your grandmother would be ashamed of what you've done to this family. The words hit like a physical blow. Don't you dare use Grandma Eleanor against me. She wanted us to stay together, Riley. Instead you're destroying everything. You destroyed it, I whispered. When you stole my future. He shook his head sadly. We gave your future to someone who can make better use of it. Deep down, you know we were right. I slammed the door in his face. But his words followed me inside. My tiny apartment felt like a prison cell, the rain against the windows a constant reminder of everything I'd lost. My savings would barely cover next month's rent. The course catalog for my night classes mocked me from the kitchen counter. The microwave clock blinked 2:47 a.m. when my phone lit up again. Emily had posted photos of our mother in the hospital, with a caption that made my stomach turn. Some people choose revenge over family. Pray for our mom. Comments poured in, family, friends, distant relatives, all expressing shock at my cruelty. Even my cousin Lisa, who'd always been kind to me, wrote. How could you do this to them? I curled up on my bare mattress, Grandma Eleanor's letter clutched to my chest. For the first time, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I wasn't meant for more than what they'd chosen for me. The rain kept falling, and somewhere in the darkness, I lost sight of why I thought I could escape at all. The certified letter arrived exactly 1 month after I'd moved out. I almost didn't open it, assuming it was another attempt from my parents to guilt me into coming home. Instead, I found myself staring at official letterhead from Mitchell and Associates law offices. Dear Miss Thompson, as executor of Eleanor Mitchell's estate, I am required to deliver this letter upon confirmation of your independent residence. My hands shook as I read further. A second account. Separate from the college fund. Property shares. Investments. Enough money to pay for a full degree, and then some. My grandmother hadn't just planned for my education. She'd planned for my complete independence. The knock on my door came less than 2 hours later. "We know about the inheritance," my mother said, pushing past me into the apartment. My father and Emily followed, forming a familiar wall of disapproval. "How did you?" "The lawyer called us first," Emily smirked. "Professional courtesy," my mother added. "More like a warning. Given your recent behavior, we're filing for conservatorship. You're clearly not in a mental state to manage this kind of money." The room spun slightly. "You can't do that." "We can. And we will." She pulled out a folder. "We have documentation of your erratic behavior. Testimonies from family friends about your vindictive actions. Medical records." "Medical records?" I grabbed the folder, flipping through pages of carefully curated evidence. "You've been planning this since you found out about the first letter." "We're trying to protect you," my father said quietly. "And the family." "No." I threw the folder down. "You're trying to control me." Again. Emily stepped forward. "Don't be stupid, Riley. Just come home. Everything can go back to normal." And suddenly I saw it all so clearly, the pattern that had defined my entire life. They'd never stop trying to dim my light. Just like Grandma Eleanor had written. I walked to my bedroom and returned with her letter, holding it like a shield. "Normal? You mean where I work myself to death funding Emily's dreams while mine die? Where I believe I'm not worth investing in because you decided that before I could prove otherwise?" "Riley," my mother started. "Get out." My voice was steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it. "Get out or I'll call the police and report you for harassment. And then I'll take these documents to a lawyer, a real one, and show them how you're trying to manipulate the system to steal from me." Again. They stared at me, shocked by this new version of Riley, who didn't back down, didn't cave to guilt. "You'll regret this," Emily said as they moved toward the door. I thought of Grandma Eleanor. Of her careful planning. Of her belief in me. "No," I said. "For the first time in my life, I won't." 1 year later, I sat in my university's library, surrounded by textbooks and the gentle hum of students preparing for finals. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Grace. "Check your email." Found something while cleaning out Mom's old desk. The attachment was a photo of another letter from Grandma Eleanor, dated just days before she died. Unlike the others, this one was unfinished, trailing off mid-sentence. But what caught my eye was the book sitting next to it in the photo, her worn copy of Jane Eyre, the one she'd always promised to give me. "It's yours if you want it," Grace wrote. That evening, I picked up the book from Grace's house. As I flipped through the yellowed pages, a small envelope fell out. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen before, teenage Eleanor standing proud in front of her first apartment, keys in hand. On the back, she'd written, "Sometimes the bravest thing is choosing yourself. Your turn now, Riley." I thought about Emily, who'd recently started working as a waitress after dropping out of her master's program. Last week, she'd sent me a single text. "I get it now." I hadn't responded, but I understood what she meant. My parents had sold their house, downsizing to an apartment. Mom had started working part-time at a local shop, her first job in 20 years. Dad's Facebook profile showed him looking older, but somehow more present, less like the shadow he'd been. I ran my fingers over Eleanor's handwriting, remembering how everyone had expected me to break, to come crawling back when things got tough. Instead, I'd found my own path. My first semester grades had proved what Eleanor knew all along. I was capable of so much more than they'd allowed me to be. The book club I'd started at the local coffee shop had grown into a tight-knit group of friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. "We were reading Jane Eyre next month," my choice. My phone buzzed again. Emily, can we talk? Really talk? I looked at Eleanor's photo again, at her fierce, proud smile. Revenge hadn't been about hurting them in the end. It had been about saving myself, about breaking free from a story they'd written for me and writing my own. I texted back, coffee shop on Oak Street. Tuesday at 2. Maybe Emily was ready to write her own story too. Maybe not. But for the first time, I was okay either way. I had my own keys now. My own proud smile. My own unfinished chapters waiting to be written. I placed Eleanor's photo carefully between the pages of Jane Eyre and headed home to study. There was a future waiting. And this time, it belonged entirely to me.